Daniel Reeves was the kind of guy who followed routines. Every Thursday night, like clockwork, he met his best friend Ethan Marsh at the Silver Lantern, a cozy, dimly lit bar on the edge of Asheville. They'd have a couple of drinks, talk about their week, and head home. Nothing out of the ordinary. But this Thursday was different. By the time Ethan woke up Friday morning, Daniel was gone. Not just hungover, not just running late, vanished. Ethan sat in a stiff plastic chair at the Asheville Police Department, hands clenched together as he faced Detective Sarah Holt. "He was supposed to stay at my place," Ethan said, voice strained. "He left the bar at 11:42, said he'd see me soon, but he never showed up." Sarah flipped open the case file. Daniel's car had been found at 12:15 a.m., abandoned on Route 46, 7 miles out of town. The engine was still running. The driver's side door was open. The headlights cut through the thick fog, illuminating nothing but an empty road. His wallet was still on the passenger seat. No signs of a struggle, no footprints leading away, just gone. "You're sure he didn't mention being in trouble?" Sarah asked. Ethan hesitated. "Not exactly, but the last few weeks he was acting off. Jumpy, kept checking his phone, looking over his shoulder. I asked him about it, but he brushed it off." Sarah's instincts flared. She had worked missing persons cases before. This wasn't someone walking away from their life. Then came the first real clue. A traffic camera a few miles down Route 46 had picked up Daniel's car at 11:50 p.m., but the chilling part wasn't the car itself. It was what stood near it. A shadowy figure, barely visible in the fog, standing motionless by the roadside, just watching. Sarah's stomach twisted. Whoever it was, they weren't in a hurry. They weren't waving for help. They were just there. And Daniel Reeves, just minutes later, was gone. Detective Sarah Holt sat at her desk, staring at the grainy traffic camera footage looping on her screen. The shadowy figure stood near Daniel's car, barely visible through the thick fog. It didn't move. It didn't approach the vehicle. It just watched. Who was it? And more importantly, where was Danielle? Ethan Marsh sat across from her, his knee bouncing anxiously. "You have to find him," he said, his voice cracking. "This isn't like him. He wouldn't just leave." Sarah nodded. She had been in law enforcement long enough to know when something felt wrong. Then, her phone buzzed. A forensic tech had just finished going through Daniel's apartment. "We found something," the tech said. "You might want to see this." Daniel's apartment, 2:30 p.m. Sarah pushed open the door to Daniel's apartment. It was neat, organized, except for his desk. Papers were scattered everywhere, post-it notes scribbled with erratic handwriting. The same phrase was written multiple times across a torn notebook page. "He's watching me." Sarah's pulse quickened. "What the hell?" Ethan whispered, picking up one of the notes. "Why didn't he tell me?" The forensics tech handed Sarah Daniel's laptop open to his email inbox. There was only one unread message. No subject, no sender, just a single sentence. "Leave it alone before it's too late." Sarah's heart pounded. He was in trouble. Ethan ran a hand through his hair. But what was he involved in? Sarah scrolled through Daniel's emails. Most were normal. Work updates, bills, a few messages from Ethan. But one stood out. A message from 2 weeks ago. The subject line was simple: "We need to talk." The sender? Unknown. Sarah clicked it open. The email body contained just one line. "You saw something you weren't supposed to." Sarah exchanged a glance with Ethan. "Daniel was scared," she murmured, "and someone knew why." A chill settled over the room. Wherever Daniel was, whatever had happened to him, he had been running from something. Or worse, someone. Detective Sarah Holt gripped the printed email in her hands, reading the words over and over again. "You saw something you weren't supposed to." Daniel Reeves had been running from something, or someone, and now he was gone. She needed answers, fast. Asheville Police Department, 4:15 p.m. Sarah sat across from Ethan in the interrogation room. Though this wasn't an interrogation, he wasn't a suspect, yet. but he was the closest link to Daniel. "Think hard," Sarah pressed, folding her hands on the table. "2 weeks ago, around the time Daniel got this email. Did anything unusual happen?" Ethan shook his head, then hesitated. His brows knitted together. "Wait. Yeah, he mentioned something weird, said some guy was following him." Sarah straightened. "Did he say who?" "No. I laughed it off at the time, told him he was being paranoid." Ethan's jaw tightened. "But now I think he was serious." Sarah nodded, processing the information. If Daniel thought someone was following him, then the figure by his car in the fog wasn't a coincidence. "Where did this happen?" she asked. Ethan exhaled. "Near his apartment. He told me some guy was watching him from across the street, just standing there." "Did he call the police?" "No. He said he'd handle it." Ethan scoffed bitterly. "Guess that didn't work out." Sarah stood. "Show me exactly where." "Daniel's apartment, back alley, 5:02 p.m. The alley behind Daniel's apartment was narrow, damp, and empty. A single streetlight flickered, barely cutting through the early evening shadows. Sarah scanned the area. If someone had been watching Daniel, they had a perfect vantage point. She crouched, examining the wet pavement. A few cigarette butts, fresh, a sign that someone had been lingering, waiting. Her phone buzzed. She answered. "Holt." "We ran a trace on Daniel's phone records," said the tech on the other end. "He got multiple calls from an unregistered burner phone the week before he disappeared." Sarah's heart pounded. "How many calls?" 7. She exhaled. "That wasn't random, that was a threat." And then a noise. Sarah turned sharply. A shadow moved at the edge of the alley. Someone was there, watching her. Detective Sarah Holt sat in her car, gripping the steering wheel so hard her knuckles turned white. The words from the distorted phone call echoed in her mind. "If you keep digging, you'll end up just like him." Whoever had taken Daniel wasn't just covering their tracks, they were threatening her now. But Sarah had never been one to back down. With renewed determination, she pulled out her phone and scrolled through Daniel's emails again. The anonymous warning, the "you saw something you weren't supposed to" message, something didn't add up. If Daniel had discovered something dangerous, where would he have recorded it? Then it hit her. His laptop. She started the engine and drove straight to the precinct, her mind racing. Asheville Police Department, evidence room, 6:45 p.m. Sarah set Daniel's laptop on the desk, her fingers flying over the keyboard. She bypassed the basic security, but his personal files were encrypted. Smart move. If Daniel had been paranoid about someone watching him, he wouldn't leave his secrets unprotected. She called the forensic tech. "I need this decrypted now." 20 minutes later, a tech named Reggie Patel walked in, holding a USB drive. "You were right," he said. "Daniel had a hidden folder, completely locked down. We cracked it." Sarah plugged in the USB and a single video file popped up on the screen. She clicked play. Grainy security footage appeared. A dimly lit parking garage. At first, nothing seemed out of the ordinary. Then, a black SUV pulled into frame. The timestamp read 10:27 p.m., 2 nights before Daniel vanished. The driver's door opened. A man in a suit stepped out. Tall, broad shoulders, a sharp jawline. He looked around cautiously before opening the SUV's back door. Then Daniel appeared. "I won't be part of this." Detective Sarah Holt's hand hovered near her hip, inches from her gun, as she turned toward the dark alleyway. The faint glow from the street light barely reached the end of the narrow passage, but she could feel it. Someone was watching her. "Who's there?" she called out, voice steady. No answer, just the distant hum of traffic and the occasional drip of water from a rusted fire escape. She took a cautious step forward. A footstep echoed in response. Sarah's pulse quickened. Whoever was there wasn't just passing through. They were waiting, watching. Then, a sudden movement. A shadow peeled away from the darkness, turning and disappearing around the corner before Sarah could react. "Hey, stop!" she yelled, sprinting forward. She reached the corner in seconds, gun drawn, but the figure was gone. Only the faint sound of footsteps fading into the night remained. Sarah exhaled sharply. Whoever they were, they didn't want to be seen, but they wanted her to know they were there. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. She yanked it out and glanced at the screen. Unknown caller. Sarah hesitated. The timing was too perfect. She pressed accept and lifted the phone to her ear. "Holt!" At first, there was only silence. Then, a distorted voice crackled through the speaker. "Stop looking for him!" A pause, then the voice, low, mechanical, like it had been run through a voice changer, spoke again. "If you keep digging, you'll end up just like him." The line went dead. Sarah stood frozen, gripping the phone tightly. This wasn't a missing persons case anymore. This was a warning. He looked tense, arms crossed, arguing with the man. The audio was distorted, but one phrase was clear. "I won't be part of this." The man grabbed Daniel's arm. Daniel yanked away. Then the screen glitched. When it cleared, Daniel was gone. The SUV drove off like nothing had happened. Sarah's stomach twisted. This wasn't just a disappearance. This was an abduction. And the man in the video? He wasn't a stranger. Sarah had seen his face before. And if he realized she had this footage, she might be next. Detective Sarah Holt's pulse thundered in her ears. She replayed the grainy footage again, eyes locked on the man in the suit. The man who had taken Daniel. She knew that face. FBI? A government official? A corporate fixer? Whoever he was, he had power. Enough to make Daniel disappear. Her gut told her that if she didn't act fast, she could be next. Sarah grabbed her phone and dialed her captain. No answer. She tried Reggie, the forensic tech who decrypted the files. Straight to voicemail. Her stomach twisted. Were they already covering their tracks? A notification popped up on her laptop. Remote access detected. Her eyes widened. Someone was wiping the files. She yanked out the USB drive, severing the connection. But the damage was done. The original file on the laptop was gone. Someone was watching her. And they knew she had seen the footage. Asheville Police Department parking lot, 7:30 p.m. Sarah shoved the USB into her pocket and hurried to her car. She needed to get somewhere safe, somewhere she could regroup. But as she approached her vehicle, a black SUV turned the corner. Her heart slammed against her ribs. The same model from the video. The SUV slowed, stopped. For a long moment, nothing happened. The streetlights cast long shadows across the parking lot. Then, the driver's side door opened. It was him, the man in the suit. Sarah's fingers hovered over her gun, but he raised his hands. A sign of truce. "Detective Holt," he said smoothly. His voice was calm, controlled, dangerous. "You've been asking a lot of questions." Sarah's grip tightened. "Where is Daniel Reeves?" The man smirked. "You're in over your head, detective. Walk away, and this all goes away." Her mind raced. Did they kill Daniel? Was he still alive? Sarah had two choices: run or fight. But then, a screech of tires. A second car roared into the lot. Ethan Marsh leaned out the window, eyes wild. "Get in, now!"